Thank you for joining us for tonight's October 2024 Q&A Talk. I am tonight's host, Q&A Talks Program Coordinator, Cody McRae-Cullum. My personal pronouns are he, they, but if you are feeling bold, feel free to address me with my preferred pronoun, the royal we. I am so overjoyed to be speaking tonight with a good friend of the Project Q&A community, Miss Hilah. Q&A Talks connect rural parents and caregivers of LGBTQIA+ youth with the resources they need to ensure their children can grow up safely and authentically. Q&A Talks is an initiative of Project Q&A and is made possible by grants from the Independence Area Community Chest and the American Library Association's Libraries Transform Communities focus on rural and small library grant in partnership with the Independence Public Library. Tonight, we are pleased to have Miss Hilah. Ms. Hilah, licensed clinical social worker, has around 15 years of experience in the mental health field, and in addition to her LCSW, has also earned 2 bachelor's degrees in psychology and women's studies. Ms. Hilah's personal pronouns are she, her, and she is a queer cis woman. Please welcome Ms. Hilah.
Hello, I'll pause for the applause. I'm sure it's happening off
No
screen.
worries. Yeah, we'll cue it up in the archives for sure.
All right, so yeah, I am of course a professional adult, so this is titled Holidays.
Of course, yeah. I love that. Love that for you.
Thank you. For a LGBTQIA plus holiday survival guide. So this is going to talk a little bit about how to prepare for the holidays, both as a queer person and as a person supporting a queer person. But to be fair, most of these strategies discussed in here really can be used for anyone who is going into any kind of event or situation where they feel uncomfortable or they feel potentially unsafe.
For sure, yeah. I'm glad that you've tailored it toward that, but made it more broadly applicable for anybody. That's awesome.
Yeah, so kind of just a quick overview of what it'll be is we'll kind of talk about why holidays are particularly stressful, especially for LGBTQ. Some of the things we need to think about to create a strategy to have a best, to kind of make the best out of a worse situation, or maybe even make something good out of what we think might be a bad situation. And then other ideas on how to make sure you are being a effective ally. So part of the reason that this is talked about is because holidays are already known to be a stressor. Kind of did this in the wrong area. So holidays especially are triggering for a lot of people, financial reasons, family, loneliness, a lot of those things. But LGBTQ people are more likely than non-LGBTQ counterparts to experience lonely, stress, and anxiety and depression during this time of year. Research shows that LGBTQ people are more likely to experience those sort of symptoms year-round. But providers have said that the holiday season, especially returning home for the holidays, can exuberate these symptoms. So where we especially see, I don't know how many of you went to my other one, but studies have found, and this is one specific study I found, but this is pretty consistent across the board of studies done on people, LGBTQ people. Half of LGBTQIA plus people have experienced depression. 3 to 5 have experienced anxiety. 1 in 8 LGBTQIA people aged 18 to 24 have attempted to end their life, and almost half of trans people have thought about taking their lives. What we find is the big difference when it comes to these things, and what is a big predictor of how people's emotional health will respond when it comes to being a member of a sexual minority, is whether or not they are getting support. So a trans person who has to go home for the holidays and present themselves as a cisgendered person is going to have a lot harder of a holiday, a lot more anxiety, a lot more stress, and a lot more of these feelings of suicidality, uh, or depression, those sort of things, increased substance use than somebody who is able to go and be themselves freely. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be stressors. There's just going to be different stressors that may be less likely to result in kind of these more extreme responses. So kind of the main things to talk about as far as creating a strategy to survive the holidays. Boundaries are really where everything's going to start from. And so boundaries kind of all of these sort of fall under the boundary umbrella. Figuring out your self-care, creating harm reduction when you can't involve self-care moments, and creating a plan. So what are boundaries? Essentially, boundaries, one of the things to identify is that a boundary is something you are doing for yourself. So they are limits that you set with others. They are created to protect ourselves. They are to help us acknowledge what makes us uncomfortable, resentful, or upset, and acknowledge what our needs and desires are, and to remind us that we are just as important as anyone else, which, if you're a people pleaser, can be a hard thing to do. The way this comes into the holidays and into these situations is identifying who are you willing to be around. Are you willing to talk to anyone who's there in this situation? I'm going to a holiday party. My neighbor has a holiday party that's pretty much always full of lots of queer people, lots of, people of all sorts of different faith backgrounds. Everyone's very open. Everyone's very accepting. In a situation like that, I'm willing to talk to pretty much everyone who's there. If I was going to a holiday party with my extended family, I have one uncle who is kind of a jerk. I will maybe do my best to keep all conversations with him to polite small talk and then excuse myself to the bathroom. Where are you willing to go? So if you have a family member who lives 200 miles away, and you're going to have a terrible time, and you're going to be stuck in that town where you don't know anyone else, maybe you recognize I shouldn't go there. Sometimes people are willing to go to certain places for family and friends that they wouldn't otherwise go. So creating what that, or maybe I'm willing to meet my family halfway. And what are you willing to do and talk about? Are you willing to talk to your family about everything? Are you willing to talk to your family about, like I said, just keeping it small talk? Are we just going to talk about the weather? Am I okay talking about work, but not my love life? So being able to just identify what all of those things are for you, and additionally identifying if it's a hard boundary or a soft boundary. So a soft boundary is something that you can get, it has a little bit more give to it. If my uncle wants to ask me about my romantic life, right? And that may be a hard boundary I set. I may say, I'm not talking to you about it at all. But if my cousin wants to talk about it, maybe I'm willing to talk about it in vague terms. And that's okay. And sometimes I avoid it, sometimes you redirect it. So self-care is an important thing, and one of the things I always like to make sure to discuss when talking about self-care is the history of self-care comes out of originally comes from the medical community, but really took hold as part of the civil rights movement. It was something definitely pushed forward a lot by the Black Panthers, especially Angela Davis. And this is just a quote from an article that I liked, that is, Self-care wasn't viewed as a luxury, but as a technique for self-empowerment to continue to fight social injustices. Social workers, we have that saying of you can't fill somebody else's cup when yours is empty. So, we have to take care of ourselves before we can help others, or we can help on the bigger area, which is why self-care is very important, even when you are a support. When we're talking about holidays and we're talking about unwelcoming spaces, psychological self-care is going to be important, emotional, personal, generally, sometimes physical, and oftentimes spiritual is going to be a big part. So part of the thing with psychological self-care is a big thing is part of self-care is choosing not to have conversations with people who are dedicated to disagreeing with you. If I know no matter what I say, my right-wing conspiracy theory loving grandfather is going to pick a fight with me, then I'm not going to take on that mental and psychological stress, and I'm going to choose to not have those conversations with them. If I know that going into a church with my family is going to cause me a lot of psychological harm, I'm going to make that decision to not go to church. Or maybe I'm going to make that decision that for self-care reasons, I only come to coffee hour, because I know whatever the sermon is going to be that day is going to be potentially upsetting and triggering to me. So self-care kind of falls into two categories. It is both doing things that are nice for yourself. So using spirituality, I'm going to go to the church that affirms and supports me. And it's also not doing things that are going to harm you. I'm not going to go to the church where I'm going to have to listen to a 2-hour lecture about how I'm bad and I'm going to hell. And why are we talking about this? It's Christmas. So identifying kind of those things for you, what are the things you can do that are helpful, and what are the things that are harmful that you can avoid? Which goes into my favorite kind of thing, harm reduction. Harm reduction is one of my passions. I always describe harm reduction as doing dumb things in a smart way. So basically, if for whatever reason you have to go into a situation where you are not going to enjoy yourself, or where you are likely to experience negative things, prepare for it to maybe not necessarily prepare, right? Being realistic. I am a trans person, and I am about to walk into a house full of Southern Baptists who are in their 80s and 90s and think that Madonna is going to hell because of the Like a Prayer video, right? The likelihood that I show up today and they're going to have suddenly done a full 180 and they're going to accept me and affirm me and support me and love me unconditionally, that's not realistic. That's not going to happen. Don't go in with this idea of suddenly everyone's going to love me and it's going to be all hunky-dory and we're going to have a song and a dance and it's going to be Disney. It's okay, go in this, recognize that this is probably not going to be super comfortable, recognize that there are things that may or are likely to trigger me, and what are those triggers, because that's a big part of the coming up with a plan part of this. A big part of setting harm reduction too is setting a time limit or expectations. So a big thing with this would be letting your family or friends know. This is one that introverts do a lot too. Of let your family and friends know, I'm only going to be there for a while. I'm going to swing by and say hi. I'm going to come by and have a drink. I'm going to, join you all for appetizers, and then I have to go. Just sort of figuring out in advance what is a amount of time that you intend to be there. One of the things that is a positive about being in the Midwest is that if you say you're going to be there for half an hour and you end up staying for an hour, hour and a half, no one's really going to bat an eye. Probably going to think you're still saying goodbye from being there for half an hour. But if you need to stay longer, that's great. By setting an expectation, though, no one's going to get, well, they may still get upset or they may still get disappointed that you have to leave early, but that is on them. That's a big part of boundaries too, is recognizing that we can only control what we do. We cannot control how others respond to them, and how others respond is not our responsibility. So there's a very great, I don't know how many of you Bob's Burgers fans, but there's a very good episode of Bob's Burgers where he talks about how he literally sets a 30-minute timer when he goes to visit his dad, because at the 30-minute mark, his dad always says something upsetting and they get in a fight. Kind of think about that. I can handle, my family, we always seem to get bad right around the time the second bottle of wine gets open. I'm going to leave before that, Pick one. So this is a harm reduction. Hopefully we're not having too many adolescents dealing with their children, but if you do figure out that you are going to use some substances to manage this, I'm going to have a glass of wine. I've got a, well, you guys are in Kansas, so you can't legally do this, but here in Missouri, I'm going to smoke a bowl, or I'm going to, whatever substance I'm going to use to get myself through this. I'm going to smoke some cigarettes, whatever it is. Just making sure you are picking one and that you are pacing yourself, not mixing any kind of medications and alcohol, drinking. If you do go with alcohol, stop, make sure you have a glass of water in between, make sure you have a safe way home. Those are also big parts of harm reduction. So we put these all together and we create a plan. So first step in your plan is identifying who is going to be there, what am I doing, where am I going, when am I going to be there, why am I going? Why am I going is a very important part of this too, because that's a moment when you can reflect on, is this actually somewhere I want to go? Why am I going? I'm going because there's a cousin I only see once a year that I really enjoy talking to, but everyone else in my family sucks. Or I'm going because there is a family expectation that we all come to this event. I'm going because my boss has invited me and I don't think I can get out of it, right? Well, if I'm only going to see my one cousin, maybe I don't go. Maybe I just call my cousin and say, hey, can we hang out while you're in town? Just the two of us. If I'm going because my whole family expects me to be there, but I'm just going to be miserable and I know they're going to be miserable, do I really need to go? If I'm going to this thing I'm comfortable with because my boss has asked me to go, maybe I do feel like I do have to go no matter what, or maybe there's a way I can get out of it. Sorry, I got something else going on that day. I'm sick, I'm whatever. We don't really like to lie, but sometimes it's what you got to do, to get through it. Creating a plan. Are there safe people here? Who can I talk to? If I am getting uncomfortable, is there somebody that can give me a ride home? Is there somebody I can call who can make sure I get home? Exit strategy is a big part of this, and those two kind of go along. Do I have my own ride? Do I know who my ride is going to be? If I go with somebody else, do I have a backup exit strategy? Making sure that my phone is charged. So if I need to order an Uber, I can order an Uber, right? Practice. This goes back to boundaries. Practice the sort of things that you intend to say to people to express your boundaries. To say, they ask about your romantic life and you say, nothing's really going on and I don't really want to talk about it. And just continuing to say, I don't really want to talk about it, the more they push. Getting comfortable with being okay with being a broken record, right? It's not rude. If you have set a boundary and somebody violates that boundary and somebody continues to violate that boundary, you are not being rude by continuing to reassert your boundary. They are being rude by not respecting it. They are the one that is being harmful. You are not being harmful. That can be very hard because a lot of times we go along to get along, especially when it comes to family, especially if it comes to toxic family and toxic relationships. But we have to practice and prepare not doing that, and practicing and preparing to prioritize ourselves. Sometimes practice is practicing with other people in your life, other situations. Can I set a boundary with a friend about something that's not big? This is just, this is how I'm going to practice is I'm going to tell my best friend that I don't want to go to this coffee shop we've been going to for years, because even though we've been going for 10 years, I actually hate it. you know, um, Knowing that this is a safe person, my best friend is likely not going to stop being friends with me because I don't like this coffee shop. Yeah, they might be mad at me that I didn't say something 10 years ago, but chances are I'm not going to be in danger by setting this boundary. It's a great way to practice your boundaries. And worst comes to worst, having an emergency plan, especially if you are somebody who struggles with suicidal ideation, or if you are somebody who struggles with substance use. So, who am I going to call if there's an emergency? Who can I talk to? 988, if you aren't aware, is a national crisis line number. You can call and you can text it. So if you're needing an emergency where you just need someone to talk to who's going to be non-judgmental, 988 is a great thing to use. I'm going to keep an extra $30 in my sock to pay for a taxi if I need to, or, like I said, keeping your phone charged, knowing where is the nearest gas station or restaurant or safe space that I can get to if I need to. Those are definitely more extreme situations where I would go back to that why. Why am I going into this situation if I am that worried about my safety? But sometimes there's only so much we can do. And then setting yourself up on a recovery. How am I going to recover from this situation? Decompress. I'm going to come home. I'm going to do something fun for myself. I'm going to take a shower. I'm going to watch a movie I really enjoy. I'm going to process the situation. I'm going to, call somebody, talk to them about what happened. A lot of times after events, we actually find ourselves processing. We don't realize it with whomever we went to the event with. We talk about what happened and what about it was upsetting us. Great. Big thing that we have found through scientific studies is Tetris and games similar to Tetris, like Candy Crush, things of that nature, do what's called bilateral stimulation. And in doing so, they are what kind of helps keep traumatic experiences from becoming traumatizing experiences. So, playing those kind of things, doing those kind of things, even if it wasn't necessarily something that feels very traumatic, they can be very good at helping you kind of get your mind off of them. And then, of course, resting, making sure that you are hydrated, making sure that you give yourself sleep. A lot of emotional and mental labor goes into things like this. And much like when we do physical labor, we do need to make sure that we are recovering from our mental and emotional labor. So, like I said, that all applies to anyone going into any kind of situation where you feel like you are going to be uncomfortable or unsafe. And then how to be a holiday ally. I didn't come up with a clever name for this one. I couldn't think of one. I'm sorry. Big thing is following the other person's lead. We're going to have this conversation in advance. What are your limits? What are things you don't want me to talk about? Do half your family know you're gay and the other half doesn't, and you don't want them to know? So I need to make sure that I switch pronouns or just straight up don't mention your partner at all. At what point do you want me to step in? Is me stepping in to say something and call out your grandmother for that really homophobic thing she said going to make things worse? and cause you more problems, or do you want me to step in and defend you? Um, um, identifying, like I said, what they know, what their family knows, what they're comfortable with being shared, what they're not. Respecting boundaries, basically ask for permission, not forgiveness. It's one of the few times I'm for that. I'm generally ask for forgiveness, not permission kind of person. But when it comes to things like this, where we're talking about family dynamics, we're talking about friendship dynamics, we're talking about all of these complicated layers of things, ask them what if you have anything that you are curious about, ask them in advance. Maybe you're going into this situation as a friend. Even as a friend, is it okay for me to give you a hug? Is it okay for me to rub your back? Or is that going to cause problems with the family? Are they going to respond aggressively to that? Or is this maybe we're going into a church that's one of those communities where people of the same gender can touch each other and it's not considered anything, but people of opposite genders touching each other is inherently sexual. And so we need to be careful with that. Do I need to maybe call you by different pronouns this evening? Just asking them anything that you are wanting to know, so you can help prepare. And part of that too is helping them prepare those plans. Offering support, a big part of that, extending invitations to people, letting them know, hey, being alone on a holiday sucks. If you don't want to deal with your family, you're welcome to come spend this time with mine. Or I know you got this family thing in the morning and your family kind of sucks. Maybe come over at night. We can have like a Friendsgiving, things of that nature. And making yourself, I want to highlight the realistically available. Realistically available. My friend living in Oregon right now has a emotional breakdown and freaks out, and she's in the middle of Oregon, right? I can't come pick her up. That's a 24-hour, that's 26. I just did that drive. That's why I know. It's a 26-hour drive, right? If I tell her, wait there, I'm going to come and get you, it's not going to end well for either of us, right? But I can be on the phone with her. I can help her figure out how to get an Uber to where she is that can take her where she needs to go. I have a friend, if I have a friend who lives, my sister, for me, my sister lives 5 minutes away. If something happens at her house and she needs me to pick her up and bring her to my house, I can realistically do that, right? I could realistically walk over there and grab her and have her come back. So making sure that what you are offering people is something that you can follow through with. And that is a huge thing, because you don't want to overpromise what you can't do. Because if somebody is in a crisis and they feel like their support systems aren't actually providing them support, that is going to make that crisis work. So it's going to escalate it. And then big part of what to do in a crisis is grounding. Some of you probably know this, some of you probably been involved in therapy and are familiar with this, but if not, grounding is basically, how do we bring this back to where we are right now, right? We validate someone's emotions. We tell them, I can see why that would be really upsetting. I can understand why you're angry. I can understand why you're disappointed. I can understand, why you're feeling where you're feeling. Don't try and problem solve. Don't try and say, but you have to see it from their point of view. Or, well, maybe you didn't, I don't know if you really had a right to be angry. Or, well, maybe you should have done this instead of that. Or, now is not the time when someone's in a crisis or someone is upset. Those are conversations that can be had at a later date. In the moment, we just need to kind of calm them down and make sure everyone is safe. And a big part of that too is help focus on the present. Help focus on what can we do moving forward. So-and-so said something very homophobic and transphobic, and it was incredibly triggering to me. And now I'm crying. And, I'm the one who drove us all here. Okay, well, hey, we're gonna leave, and Bob can drive your car, and we're all gonna go over to Bob's house and watch some movies and just decompress together. We've hey, you're safe right now. You have these people around you who care about you, who understand what's going on, and are going to help you with moving forward. If you are not familiar with grounding exercises, there are definitely a lot of them. A very common one is your senses: 5 things you see, 4 things you can. That doesn't actually matter what order you do it in, but 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you touch, 2 things you I can't remember what the other one is. Hear, touch, smell, and 1 thing you taste. Yeah. Or deep breaths. Don't tell someone to calm down. Nowhere in the history of calm down has anyone ever calmed down by being told so, but modeling deep breaths can help. One of the things we definitely find in the mental health field is that people tend to match where we are. If you are calm, they'll become calm. If you get worked up, they're going to get more worked up. If they're yelling, you talk softly. If they keep yelling, you keep lowering your voice softer and softer, and eventually they're going to follow. If you start making a show of taking all these deep breaths, they're going to start following you. So use that to your advantage. And that's a good thing. Use to your advantage when you're in, as part of your plan in a situation too. If so and so starts yelling at me, I know I'm going to take some deep breaths and I'm going to keep my voice even and say, thank you all for having me. It's a lovely evening. I'm going to go. Because that's really not going to lead to any more haters. Sometimes it will, but that's also a moment of, that I like to say of, not my circus, not my clowns. Just because you're going to make a fool of yourself doesn't mean I have to. So, I got this one especially from PFLAG. If you're familiar with it, it's Parents and Friends of Lesbians and Gays. It's a really, don't want to say old, but old is all I can kind of think of right now. Long-standing, there we go. It's a very long-standing organization that started in the 60s, 70s to help provide support to family members and friends of LGBTQ people who didn't really know what to do. Very good resources if you need it for all kinds of things. So, great. Thank you all for having me. Any questions, thoughts, feedbacks?
I haven't noticed any, but I will double check just to be certain. And thank you for being here tonight, Miss Hilah. We absolutely adore you as always, and we appreciate your willingness to share these insights. Let me double check real quick that we to see about comments. Looks like no so far. But I will drop the Zoom link for those that wish to join us for a private question, answer, and comments discussion sort of section afterward. It will be in the comments section if anybody cares to join us. All right, thank you, Ms.
Come
Hilah.
on by. Ask any questions you got.
Yes, please. We have one person that I mentioned this to that would love to be in the Zoom chat, so we'll see if that person is able to make it, but no worries either way.
Absolutely. I am a licensed clinician, so I can answer questions about your situations.
For sure, for sure.
Give you some quick free therapy.
For sure. All right. Thank you to all who tuned in and our partners at the Independence Public Library and our funding sources, the Independence Area Community Chest and the American Library Association. Thank you to Ms. Hilah for a wonderful presentation. If you would like to continue the conversation with Ms. Hilah on Zoom, follow the link in the comments. Be sure to tune in next month for our Q&A talks. We'll be talking with a yet to be determined speaker possibly in December. Details are not yet entirely certain, but when they're available, we will be posting them on all of our socials, so watch for those, please. If you would like to find out more about Project Q&A, our work, or view past Q&A talks, visit our website and follow us on social media platforms. To support the work we are doing in rural communities, please consider making a tax-deductible donation today. Thank you for watching our Q&A talk for October 2024. And if you have any questions for our presenter, please follow the link in the comments. Thank you so much and have a wonderful evening.